And welcome back to Go Baby Go TV. I'm Louie Hillman, joined by my partner, the Optimist guy, Brian Setzler. In today's episode, we are talking about the practical art of overcoming objections. Brian, you've been selling for over 3 decades. Have you ever made a sale without some objection along the way?
Once in a while, but it's unusual. Usually you get your fair amount of objections or just questions mainly, but certainly there are some objections you have to navigate.
Well, we're going to talk in just a minute about practical or, reasonable objections from a prospect, but there also are assumingly unreasonable objections. Any stories that stand out from you, maybe from your early days out in the field selling about an unreasonable objection?
Well, certainly I remember getting kicked out of a guy's yard one time because he thought that I was with a church instead of a religious affiliated insurance provider at that time. And so there was a misunderstanding. And I'm a 22-year-old, 23-year-old kid, and that was no fun, I can assure you. Because really at the beginning, it's easy to get an objection to have an appointment in the first place. That's the first objection, is you couldn't even get the meeting with the guy to talk to him about anything, But most of what we'll talk about is once you actually have a meeting, and you hopefully are meeting on what I think of as on a favorable basis as opposed to an unfavorable basis. And hopefully you have at least an even way to begin.
You thought you were there for a shakedown for a bigger offering that Sunday.
Yeah, apparently. I don't know what he thought I was there for.
Well, you just released a really great article, which we're happy to share with anybody that wants it, about practical tips to overcoming common objections. One of the ones you put in your article is, I changed my mind, right? So when somebody tells you that, what do you do?
Well, you have to start probing and usually you have to go back to the beginning to find out where the sale is breaking down. And I think it's true of any product or service. If it breaks down, it's usually breaking down in what is called the validation stage of the sales process. That means the financial advisor or the salesperson, depending on the product that we're talking about, for some reason, doubt crept into the mind of the buying consumer, right? And it got there because maybe the salesperson was incapable of validating or proving or making a persuasive case for the recommendation that was being made. And so if a person backs up, it's usually because they're second guessing the recommendation that was made. And you would have to go right to the beginning to find out, whether it's breaking down because they're really not committed to addressing whatever the objective was in the first place, or B, they don't believe that your recommendation is the best path to achieve their goal.
Well, I think that's really good wisdom, because the natural thing is to almost double down on how good the solution is, right? They've said, I've changed my mind. Well, the thought would be, well, if I re-explain to them what the solution is and why this is the recommendation I've made, maybe they'll get it this time. So most advisors double down on that. And your advice is exactly what I've learned to be true, is that really you have to go back to the problems that you've discussed with the client in the first place, that you've helped illuminate for them as it relates to their situation, and dig down deeper, right? What are the problems that they're looking for help solving that the solution would make sense for in the first place? And are those still priorities? A sales process could be months sometimes working with a client. Maybe those issues are no longer a priority for them and their family, or their priorities have changed.
Precisely. You could have all that. There's lots of cases I can think of where, an advisor, a wealth planning advisor, estate planning advisor is making a recommendation as it pertains to an estate. And, the most challenging estates are the ones where there are step families involved, because you have all these different feelings as to what fair is, meaning what would be the fair division of assets between second or third spouse, children from marriage number one, children from marriage number two for both spouses, and those are the ones that really are tricky to get any decisions made at all, because it's an uncomfortable minefield for those kinds of clients to open it up and have any sort of fair discussion. On the other hand, if they're able to, then it seems to me that you can do a really great job as the advisor, is hopefully being a financial peacemaker, so to speak, among the various stakeholders in that family. Because, what you don't want, I don't see the point of having everyone hate each other when the patriarch dies or when the matriarch dies. What would be the benefit of everybody else just being in a war?
Oh yeah, it's a nightmare.
It's a nightmare. So I think part of what we're trying to do is, be that advocate. Like just yesterday, for example, I've got a situation where I have a daughter who is the beneficiary of a trust that we put life insurance in. The son is the trustee. Well, the reason we set it up that way is this was done almost 20 years ago. Everyone was much younger. The matriarch of the family thought that at that time, she didn't know if her daughter would have been able to handle the receipt of a large lump sum of money at one time. And also they disliked her husband tremendously. Well, they're now divorced. Now everybody's 20 years older. The bad news is now the son, who's the trustee, is turned into a terrible drunk. And now it's a terrible dynamic. If the lady dies tonight, you're going to have a belligerent drunk as a trustee riding herd over his sister's money in that trust, right? So we're going to have to figure that out. So the best intentions at the beginning, now we have to figure out some way to unwind that trust, but get him to agree to withdraw as trustee, you see? So it's a complicated hornet's nest,
Wow. Well, I think one of the takeaways for me in this discussion, and again, if you'd like the full article, we're happy to share the link talking about 4 common objections and practical advice how to overcome them. But as it relates specifically to the I changed my mind, the takeaway for me is don't double down on the solution. You as the advisor have to go back to the beginning. And what was the problem that the person asked for your help with, or that you were working to help illuminate for them in their situation that they weren't aware of? And are those priorities? Because if those issues are not a priority for that client to solve now, there is no sale to be made. Move on to the next prospect. Somebody that the issues are a priority to solve now, once and for all, and they don't want to delay it, kick it down the road, and deal with the consequences later.
Exactly, because the last thing you want to do is you don't want to be viewed as the product pitch person. You want to be viewed as a trusted advisor. And if they don't accept your recommendation, it doesn't make it any better to be a louder proponent of whatever the product is that you are proposing. That you've just turned into a more obnoxious product pitchman without intending to do so.
Yeah, and you look desperate. I mean,
you look desperate, and that's just the worst possible outcome of the situation.
Yeah. All right. Well, definitely check out the article. Wonderfully written, practical advice, Bryan. We appreciate it. This has been another episode of Go Baby Go TV. We'll see you back next Monday to rev up your week and turbocharge your sales. Make it a great day.